Sarah DeHoff, who will be running today's first in this webinar series. Collaboration through consultation is the topic that we'll be hearing from Sarah about. Sarah's earned this MED from Harvard, and it's very interesting. The life that she led has meant that she studied in China, Japan, Taiwan, Czech Republic, and obviously now based in the US. So I'm sure she has a lot of interest and insights about consultation in very different environments. I asked her what brought you to consultation? Why is that of interest to you? And she noticed she was working at the MIT's U Lab in a transformational change process, and that it really became starkly clear to her the role of consultation was just so useful in terms of not just effectively making decisions, but also incredibly effective in creating learning together. So I think it's a very timely topic. We hear a lot about consultation, but I'm just really keen to hear from Sarah about the new elements and new insight that she's going to be offering to us. So Sarah, please, looking forward to hearing from you. Just one word. We're going to have Sarah present for 20 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes. And then down on the bottom of the screen, you can hopefully see the Q&A button. And that's where you can post your questions that we will then relay on to Sarah for the Q&A session of the second part of this 1 hour call. Sarah.
There is a story, an old Native American story about a grandfather who's talking to his grandson. And he tells the boy, there is a fight, and it's a fight between two wolves. And one wolf is darkness. It's ego and pride and greed and envy. And the other wolf is light. And that's the joy and the generosity and the humility. And these wolves are fighting and fighting and fighting. Each is trying to overpower the other one. And the little boy thinks about this for a little while, and he looks up at his grandfather and he says, "But which one will win?" And the grandfather says, "The one you feed." And consultation is a tool for feeding the white wolf. In this world we live in today, we have many of those elements happening at once. We've got systems that are struggling and falling apart, and we have people who are building things up. And this is the process that's happening in this world. And consultation is a tool for allowing us to help build these new systems and build these new connections and build these collaborations. So thank you to the EBF and Wilmette Institute for allowing me to come and talk today, and thank you all for coming.
Sarah, I'm going to stop you for a second. How about you turn off your video, because you were starting to break up your audio, and you can just share your screen anytime you're ready.
Okay, great. I will go ahead and share that, and we'll get started with the slides.
Fair. Thanks.
So, sure. Consultation is the Baha'i community's contribution to our collective wisdom about working together. It was first presented in the world by Baha'u'llah, who is the founder of the Baha'i faith. And it's a process of allowing groups to work together, of bringing different views together and bringing them together in a way that's harmonious and not contentious. It's a powerful tool for building community, for building teams, for learning together, for making sound decisions, especially in complex situations. Baha'u'llah talks about consultation being a shining light. He says, consultation bestoweth greater awareness and transmuteth conjecture into certitude. It is a shining light which in a dark world leadeth the way and guideth. And in today's world, we have plenty of darkness that's happening, but this is a way that we can shine a light on the complex problems that we're grappling with, bring together those different viewpoints so that we can see what the actual truth of that problem is, or that complex situation. And by seeing that, by seeing all those different views, then we have a way of creating sound decisions that are robust, that can deal with these complex situations. So some of the key points about consultation is we have some fundamental principles on which this process is based. One of is the oneness of humanity, that we are all one people, all around the world. We are one human family. And Baha'u'llah's son, Abdu'l-Baha, describes humanity as a human body. And it's a really powerful model for understanding our global society, our global community. When you think about the human body, there are millions, trillions, gazillions of cells and different types of cells. You've got bone cells and brain cells and heart cells and muscle cells, and each group of cells has their own function and their own process. But no cell can live outside the body, and the body can't function properly if all the cells aren't working together. And so this idea of the oneness of humanity is fundamental to this process of consultation, because when we see each other as part of a whole, that rather than factions that are fighting or countries that are arguing, when we see all of these pieces as one whole, then we have a much better way of moving forward and finding solutions to these problems that we're looking at. Another one of the fundamental principles of consultation is building harmony. We have a variety of individuals in a team. You've got a variety of individuals. You've got people who have different ways of looking at things, different ways of going about things. And sometimes it can get kind of difficult. You know, sometimes it's hard to see see how to build that unity, that harmony. But when we start to see each other as champions of truth, when we start to see each other as members of the same team, that we're all working toward the same goal, then it's much easier to bring things together and bring those different views together. You realize that the person who's always looking at the practical side has a valuable contribution to make. And the person who's always looking at the spiritual side of things has a valuable contribution to make. And so it's seeing that harmony, seeing that that we are all working towards the same goal, that's an essential part of this process of consultation. Abdu'l-Baha, again, the son of Baha'u'llah, talks about the conditions that are necessary for consultation. The first condition is absolute love and harmony amongst the members, for they are the waves of one sea, the drops of one river, the stars of one heaven, the rays of one sun, the trees of one orchard, and the flowers of one garden. The other condition that's important in consultation is turning to source. And in the Baha'i context, we talk about turning to the divine unity, turning to the creator. And whether that's your frame of reference or not, this process of turning to what is beyond ourselves is important in the process of consultation as well, because if we're all looking at each other and just looking straight across, we see different views, and it's easy to get enmeshed in those in the conflict of those views. But if we are able to look above, it's like if everybody is standing in a circle and points to the sun, we're all pointing to a single point, and we're all moving toward a single point. And that brings us together as we move towards that point. So it's the process of also transcending your own view, of looking beyond where you are starting from. And so that's the second condition of consultation, is looking beyond ourselves. One of the really important and sometimes more difficult aspects of consultation is doing your inner work. It requires developing those inner spiritual qualities of patience, humility, service to others, detachment. These qualities are essential. And consultation is such an interesting process because it is both happening at the individual level and at the group level. And so the individuals working on their own internal state and developing those qualities within themselves. And in doing that, then they're able to contribute to the group in a much more rich and robust way. And the group also benefits from that and creates an environment where developing those qualities becomes easier. So it's that interesting dynamic between the individual and the group that allows this environment to develop, where those qualities are encouraged, where they're developed, where they're honored, and where they're valued. Again, Abdu'l-Baha talks about these qualities, these pieces that are important in consultation. He talks about the prime requisites for them that take counsel together are purity of motive. So you want to make sure that you're coming at it with the best intentions. Radiance of spirit, detachment from all else save God, attraction to his divine fragrances, humility and lowliness amongst his loved ones, patience and long suffering in difficulties, and servitude to his exalted threshold. There's also in finding these references in consultation, I'm starting to see that these themes are not just unique to the Baha'i community, but also universal. And so all through time, wise leaders have talked about these same things. Lao Tzu talks about the sage stays behind, thus he is ahead. And this idea of humility. He is detached, thus at one with all. Through selfless action, he attains fulfillment. So these are the fundamental principles that are the foundation for consultation. Then there's also a process that is involved when a team comes together to consult and deal with an issue or deal with a problem. And in this process, the first thing is to express your view fully. Each team will have a variety of individuals. Again, you have people some people will see vistas. They'll look at the horizon and they'll see the grand view of things. Other people have the eye of the detail. They'll look at the things that need to be happening today, and we need to get these tasks done. You'll have people who have a practical approach to things, and people who have are always seeking deeper spiritual meanings in things. And the idea is to bring all of these views together, to value them, to weave them together, because they're all important and they're all valuable. And it's easy to get annoyed with somebody who comes at things with a different way than you do, but it's also important to step back and value what they have to offer, what they bring. So in consultation, it's important to express your view fully. And in that process, you also want to make sure that in looking at an issue from all sides, that no one feels belittled by offering their view. And if someone offers a view that is in opposition to yours, that is the opposite side of the question, then you don't feel offended, because this is part of the process. We have to look at it from all sides. One of the images that often comes to mind for me is if you have a candle within a lantern and everybody's looking at it from a different angle, they're each seeing a different facet of that lantern, and they describe what's happening, what they see on that lantern, the shape of the holes that allow the light to come through, the color of the facet that they're looking at. We all need to describe what we see, And what we're trying to get to is that truth within. We're trying to get to that light within. But we've got to be able to say what we're talking about. We also need to listen and listen carefully to what other people are saying, because you never know where that spark of truth is going to come out. It might come out when two opinions collide. It might come out when somebody who is very quiet suddenly comes up with a view or an insight into the problem that nobody had looked at before. So it's really important to express your view, but also to listen carefully to what everybody else is saying. And then there's the other part of it. Once you express your view, then you need to let it go. Abdu'l-Baha talks about they must in every matter search out the truth and not insist on their own opinion. And this is sometimes one of the more challenging parts of consultation, because especially when you've thought about a problem, a lot, and you put a lot of effort into understanding it, you have your own way of seeing the problem, and you've invested a lot in it. And so when you express that, when you express what you see and how you perceive things and your view of the problem, is sometimes hard to let go of it, but it's important to do that, because then the whole group can take all of those views and mix and match and sort and sift through them and come up with a deeper, truer understanding of the problem, of the situation, of what needs to happen. If we hang on to our views, it's like playing with Legos. We're each given a pile of bricks. And if we hang on to our pile of bricks, then all we end up with is that pile of bricks. But if we are each able to let go, to offer those bricks and put them in the middle of the table, then the group has all of those bricks at their fingertips, and the group then can build something. You can build a skyscraper or a spaceship or even a city out of Lego bricks, but only when you offer them, let go of them, and the group owns all of those views. The main object of consultation is to seek truth, to understand an issue as truly and thoroughly as you can. And this is a piece of why it's important to express your view and let it go, but to look at all sides of an issue, because we have a lot of experience with people imposing their truth on someone else, but that's a distortion. Truth is one thing. It's like light. When you shine different colored lights in one spot, when you have a green lantern or a green flashlight and a blue flashlight and a red flashlight, and you shine them all in the same spot, you get closer and closer to white light. And that's how it works with truth and with consultation. Is the more views that you have, the more input, the more ways of looking at different facets of the problem or the situation, the closer you get to a true understanding of the reality of that situation, of that problem. And that allows you then to make much better, stronger, more wiser decisions about what to do about that problem. And so
Sarah, for a second, can we
Yes.
stop your slide share for a second? Daniel's going to start his end because we're still getting some audio issues from you.
Okay.
And let's see if Daniel can do that. Bring it up for a second. You can still see it, right?
Yes. Excellent.
Okay. And then just give it a, just talk back to me for a couple seconds. Let's see if we got a better audio connection now.
Okay. Is this better? Does that help?
Let's hope so. Yeah, we'll just say our little prayer for everybody and see how it goes. And I'll make an edit here and when we're done. Thank you. You can continue.
This is great collaboration. We're dealing with a limited bandwidth on my end, and so I appreciate your patience with this. So the last step in the process of consultation is supporting the decision. Once the group understands an issue fully and comes to a conclusion about charting a course of action, makes a decision together,
Nope, that's not
then
getting any better.
every,
Are you prepared to go with that phone call that we were talking about?
I can do that. It will take me a minute to get the connection. But
Not
hold
a
on.
problem. Daniel, I don't know if you want to come on and maybe say something in the interim. You can leave your screen like that, that's fine. Sorry, everybody, we'll figure this out here in a second.
And we also already have the first question from Randy Johnson. So as soon as Sarah is done, we will definitely address it. Thank you very much, Randy. And indeed, this is becoming making it very enticing, both from the visual and the insight that she's going to provide. I really want to prod her in terms of the practicality of making this happen, because this is really where the challenges usually start. When we have, as Randy was mentioning, a perhaps unfamiliar group or group that's not quite united, that doesn't see or does not align with our own ideas, then when things really become challenging. So hearing these insights would be wonderful, just to see how this can go forward. As mentioned, you can post your questions just like Randy did just now, and we will gradually be addressing them in just a couple of minutes when Sarah's finished her presentation there. And I'm not sure, Vahid, is in the meantime, you're getting some messages on Facebook and YouTube where we're also streaming live.
So actually, we haven't got a question so far, but it's interesting when Sarah was commenting about this idea of oneness, understanding oneness as the basis for consultation. To me, that's a very interesting conversation to be had with whatever team we're participating in, or group or community that we are discussing. Can we all start with the basis of accepting each other as humans that will be seeking truth, as Sarah's mentioning, together? So I thought that was a very appealing concept, and something that needs a frank discussion. Can we all accept each other as human beings, as the starting point for that consultation, for that deep conversation, for that discovery of truth together? I thought that was worth highlighting from Sarah's ideas.
Indeed, and what I, at least from my experience, what I witnessed time and again is when you bring those people together around that area, that spirit of consultation, there's something that happens beyond the decision making that really creates a new culture, a new understanding, a new relationship between people. So it's not just about learning, it's not just about decision making, it's the atmosphere that's created within that group that then allows very different way of working afterwards. Sarah, are you back and strong and ready?
I think she's close.
Close? Okay.
Let's unmute her and see what happens here. If I can.
And by the way, I think you're familiar with Vahid Masroor has been on many of these calls and is offering his insights also from his PhD level. So it's definitely some interesting insights and courses that he offers that we'll met. And Boyd is offering the technical abilities here. So it's a teamwork. It's part of the consultation we had before we started that was very effective and got us to this point and worked very well in the sense.
Sarah, it looks like you're muted on your end, so try either on your phone or your Zoom call. You may have to change your settings in your Zoom to be on the phone call, because I can't unmute you from here, it looks like. But you're muted, but I see you there, so you're probably hearing us, I'm guessing. I'm hoping.
Okay, and so Vahid, from your experience in consultation, because you've also had the chance to interact with people in very different settings, it can be a beautiful 19-day feast, but it can be something outside. What do you observe? Have you sat in a room and saying this is really not working, this is really what is not making it happen? Can you just, what atmosphere is wrong and does not conduce to a positive effect after this?
I think, especially in the professional world, in the work environment, the issue that comes up back and again every time we're trying to have a good conversation, but it just doesn't work out, is when people are invested in their private agendas and have an agenda beforehand. So the conversation is not really about seeking out truth, Rather, it's about making sure that my points are the points that are, or either the decision I'm pushing for is the one that is taken, or the points that I want to make are the one that are considered. And those private agendas really roll over and take over the conversation, rather than having a frank, a sincere, but also a kind discovery of what truth could look like. So to me, that's one of the key issues. And the other issue also that I think is not is never really addressed is the issue of personal character, and that was also something that's a highlight from Sarah's points. This idea that we are all bringing in our personal character into the conversation, and so if we have never had, if we haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to refine that character, to develop those values, those spiritual qualities, then the conversation is going to be much harder than it could be if people were making efforts to really grow in terms of their personality and their character, and therefore improving the quality of their interaction. So I think those are two key aspects. One, the personal growth and development, and the other one is being able to come to the conversation without personal agendas.
And on the first one that you mentioned, one thing that I also noticed is that why do people feel the need to do this? Going back a step, and maybe they're not listened to. So what I often find is that people want to make a point just because nobody's listening to me, and then they insist even more. So I think it's also creating the conditions before the meeting to say, all these environments are positive. We are here working together. Every one of your contributions is just as important. And we give it back to the experts live. Sarah from, actually, I don't know, where are you calling from today?
I'm near Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon. So it's rainy. I think it's the humidity, and it's causing all these challenges to our connection. So you're definitely back on. Allow me to put my ugly face away and your beautiful images on, and we're ready to go again.
Okay. I'm catching up. I'm afraid I didn't hear what was being said before, but just to finish this part of the presentation, the final part of consultation is to support the decision. So when a group makes a decision, then it's important for everybody to get behind it. Even if you disagree with the decision, it's still important to support it. Because what happens is that if a group becomes, if people start undermining the decision afterwards, then it's not clear if it was a bad decision or if there was just disunity in the group. And so if everybody supports the decision, then it becomes quickly clear. If it was a bad decision, it's immediately understood to everybody, and you can come back together and make a new decision. So that's the final part of consultation, is to support the decision. Even if the decision is wrong, as it is in unity, the truth will be revealed and the wrong made right. And the next slide is just one of my favorite quotes from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And then the final slide is, if people are interested in learning more about it, there's a book. My book is on Amazon, and there's a link, Collaboration Through Consultation, and it's available then on Amazon if people are interested in learning more about this concept.
And I will post it in just a second on the chat. But first, there's a couple of questions. The first one comes from Randy Johnson, and I'm going to read it out to you, Sarah. Can true consultation really take place when you're consulting with those who, for instance, do not necessarily believe in the oneness of humanity or willing to show humility? Is it that we just reach as high as we can? Can you expound on techniques for facilitating successful consultation in those specific situations?
That's an excellent question. And I think we, first of all, nobody is an expert in consultation. So just make sure that we know that. We're all learning. And so we're all at various stages in this process of understanding how to put this tool to work. And so some people are at the very beginning of this process, and many of these concepts are new to them, or even concepts that they disagree with. But I think it's still possible to make progress. One of the most powerful parts of consultation, at least in my mind, is listening. And so even if people disagree with all of the concepts of consultation, you can still listen to them. And that is a powerful thing, because when people start to feel heard, then they're more likely to be open to other ways of looking at things, or other ideas, or other approaches. So yes, I think we can make progress, and it depends on the situation, it depends on the people, but we can take whatever piece of this consultative process seems appropriate in that situation and with that people, and focus on that. And it may just simply be that we are the ones who are modeling it, who are offering it, and it may not be a conscious decision or something that is consciously adopted by that person or that group, but simply by modeling these principles, by modeling these approaches, we are plowing the ground really for things, for people to be open to another way of operating as a group.
And there's a bit of frustration coming from Mike Saxton. So he says his biggest frustration in consultation is not so much that people disagree with what I express, but that they're not listening to what he's saying. They're not. He feels it's not being heard. It's probably not just his problem, but you're expressing your thoughts. You don't want to agree, disagree, but just please listen to me. And there's this lack of understanding, and so he's asking, how can I improve on this and make sure that people do actually listen?
That is a really challenging one, and it is. I think you have some good ideas there of trying to change the wording. I had a professor in college who was teaching a class called Counseling the Culturally Different, and one of the points that he made was the meaning of your communication is the message that's received. And I think you're touching on that there, that what are people hearing when I'm talking? And maybe there's a different way of expressing it. Maybe there's a different way of a different attitude of taking into the consultation or into the discussion. And sometimes it just takes patience. Sometimes it just takes not being heard for a while. Because when you fight something, the thing becomes stronger. But when you allow it, when you accept what is happening and observe what is happening and respond to what is happening now, then you're much better able to interact effectively with that situation. And again, oftentimes it does take a lot of patience and a lot of not being heard. And it takes a lot of experimentation. If I say it this way, what happens? If I say it this way, what happens? What is it that these people are concerned about? If I speak to those concerns, are they more able to hear what I have to say? So these are just a couple of ideas that come to my mind, but I'm sure that other people have other ideas that would be helpful too.
There's more questions. So space,
Okay.
How do you create, and this comes from Australia, Rashmi from Australia, he asks, I guess, how do you create a space where we have the whole community participates? And when I'm thinking of this question, obviously you can think in different ways. I'm thinking of physically, where do you bring them to? Does a space, physical space, have an influence? And also the other way is space. What is the space, the area where things can actually happen? What is the situation that you can create to make things happen, which you kind of touched in the previous answer? Right.
Yes, creating space it's so important, because as you mentioned, there's the physical space, being able to have a room that's big enough to hold your whole community, but also how that space is arranged. Sometimes it's possible to put everybody in a circle, and that makes it easier for people to discuss, but sometimes that circle is very big. so finding ways to allow people to express their thoughts, their views. Some communities use a talking stick kind of approach, where you have a microphone or some object that you hand from person to person. I was in one community that it was the cast and crew of a large musical, and there was a gathering before the show. Everybody stood around in a circle, and the group started chanting. It was an African American community theater, and so they started chanting a chant, Umoja means unity, and that centered everybody and gathered everybody together, kind of got everybody on the same page, on the same beat almost. And then the attention went around the circle, and so each person had an opportunity to say whatever was on their heart, what was on their mind. It went all the way around the circle until everyone had had a chance to speak, and then the community started chanting again, and just built up that energy. There's lots of different ways to bring large groups together, and there are a lot of groups that have developed different practices for this. There's a story harvest kind of approach where people are telling stories about their experiences in small groups, and then those groups disperse and intermix, and so then the stories get told in a different small group with other participants from other groups. So ways of mixing and matching people, and then bringing people together and sharing those stories. But I think the stories are important, our experiences are important, creating room and value for those different inputs, for people to share what is on their minds and to value it. So
Plenty
those
more
are a couple of
questions.
ideas.
Plenty more questions. And as you're talking about movement and so forth, there's Shala, I'm not following any order, very typical, but Shala Steve mentions body language. What about body language when you're in a consultation? How does that affect positively, negatively? Can you say something about this?
Yes, body language. And I think this goes back to those spiritual qualities when we're developing purity of motive, when we're developing radiance of spirit. I mean, that's probably even more appropriate, is when we come into the group, into the consultation, just the way that we carry ourselves conveys so much meaning to people. And it may not be the meaning you want to convey. So paying attention to how you enter the room is important. Are you entering the room with that radiance, with that love, with that joy? And even though this may be a difficult topic, or maybe this is a group that is having trouble building that unity, the way that you come into that room makes a difference. And if you can come into it with that patience, with that knowing that there's a larger spirit at play here, and tapping into that larger spirit, it helps to tap into that joy that is part of the process. Even though sometimes it gets frustrating, it's still important to connect with that spirit, connect with that joy, so that with the way that we talk, the way that we look, our face expressions, the way we cross our legs when we're sitting, all of that conveys information, conveys meaning to people. And so being conscious of how you present, how you sit, how you talk, how you look at people, whether you look them in the eye or connect with them in that nonverbal way. It's really important.
There's a question about from Jean Parker, and we're all in love with consultation. We want to apply it everywhere, but she asked, are there examples of group discussions where consultation is not appropriate? Can you think of places and situations when there is not appropriate?
That's a really good question. Group discussions where consultation is not appropriate. There aren't any that are specifically coming to mind right now. I think there are ways to adapt consultation to the situation. For instance, with parents and children, obviously the parent has the responsibility, but it's still possible to consult with the children about a lot of different things. There are probably situations where it's important, where one person has responsibility, perhaps in a work situation where you've got the boss who has the authority, and but even in those situations, it's possible to use the principles of consultation, to use the elements of it that are appropriate to that situation. The end decision may rest with one person, but gathering those views from the people involved is so valuable. So I think there are modifications, perhaps, but it is a valuable tool in a lot of situations, and we can use it in all aspects of our lives.
And I wonder if maybe through repeated uses of consultation, you create an element of trust, whereby sometimes, whilst it's not so much about appropriate and appropriate, you almost need less consultation because people trust that the decision will be taken with that original spirit in mind that can go forward, perhaps. Richard Shikele, he has a question, and it's more than a question, it's a statement about truth. So he says that whilst we're all searching for truth, and the truth is important, sometimes from a consultation, a different kind of truth may come out, which is not quite the factual truth, but the truth that people would agree on and have a consensus of moving forward on. Do you have any reactions about the objective truth, group truth, real truth, the role of truth in that arises from consultation?
Yeah, this is such an interesting one because truth is one thing, but our perceptions of it are often limited, and so that's a piece of why it's important to bring people together and to have these different views, because with a group you can look at things from different sides, and so you get closer to what the actual reality of the situation is, and sometimes a group can be off base. Sometimes maybe you've got a group that all kind of thinks the same way, and they're missing one piece out of it, and so they come to a conclusion that's not quite on top of things. But still, that's the fascinating thing about consultation, is that the unity is such an important part of it, that if the group comes to a decision and is unified about it and moves forward, then the new information will come to light. So it will become clear that there's more needed, that there's another aspect of the situation we haven't considered. But and part of that is that purity of motive and that intentional seeking truth. This is the truth that we understand today. As we go forward, we're going to learn more, and we're going to understand the truth better tomorrow. And so it is a continual process, and a continual process of learning.
I think it just resonates with a comment that Wade Schwetz made, is about consultation is not just one decision, one meeting, but you're taking a probe, and then you just evolve this over time. So that's definitely in that spirit. Thank you very much, Wade. Janet asks, what about when minorities are involved? Minorities that may not be involved or accustomed to sharing their opinions. It can be a gender issue, and can be a cultural thing, or just the hierarchy in the company. What strategies would you offer for those minorities, and how to involve them?
This is really, really important, really valuable, because we have structures of power in our society, and there are people who are accustomed to talking and sharing their views, and so that's a natural thing for them, and they don't sometimes realize that it's not easy for other people to do that. So in a group, it's really important to make sure that you provide space, that the group itself intentionally provides space for people to talk. And it depends on that group and who the individuals are in that group. For some, it may be important to just allow silence. For others, it may be important to ask individuals specifically, do you have something that you want to contribute? We want to hear from you. We think we value what you have to offer. So making space, listening, valuing different opinions, valuing different inputs, and on the other side, being someone who is more of an introvert. This is difficult for me sometimes, and so especially when people are talking and there's lots going on, it's hard for me to jump in and to get my voice heard. And so, yeah, it is a challenge. And so finding the ways to do that, and I'm still figuring it out. I'm still trying to find the answers to those. So if anybody has some ideas, please share them. It would be helpful.
And Roger Neyman as a connected question, but slightly different. So it's, there's power in a company. There's a female boss and some employees or whatever. I'm the director and you're not. So whilst they're not, maybe everybody's sitting around the table and at the same height and everything else, there may be a perception that one person is more worth than the other person. How do you handle that? Should they be made explicit? Or, yeah, we have a consultation, but at the end of the day, I am the boss and I will go and take the decision. Or how explicit, or how do you put under the table any kind of hierarchy that may be present at the table, around the table? I don't know why I use the term table automatic for consultation. You can do it anywhere, anyway, in the park.
Right. Yeah, this is very, very important, because in different situations, it's going to be different. And again, we're all learning how to do this, and different structures are more amenable to consultation. Different structures allow for consultation better than others. And the maturity of the individuals involved allow for better consultation or not. So it really depends on the situation, on the individuals. But again, I think understanding that this is a development process. We're learning how to do this, and we're learning how to do it better. And so in your particular situation, part of it is looking for opportunities to help your group move forward, to help your group understand better. If you are the boss and you are responsible for those decisions, there are probably times when you have to make the final decision. But having that input from all of the people that work with you is going to help make your decisions much better. So again, it's a development process. We're in this learning mode of how to make this work. So finding opportunities to help your group move forward, and looking for ways to maybe have maybe there are private conversations with individuals that help move that process forward. It's looking for opportunities. How do we keep learning? How do we keep developing? How do we keep moving?
You mentioned one of the qualities that is necessary, which is patience. I wish I had that. And so then my struggle is the balance between the consultation, the unity, and getting to some kind of output, because you may be creating some beautiful, serene, uplifting atmosphere, but time and again, we have not come to any conclusion. Is coming to a conclusion decision so important? Or maybe is creating that? I mean, how do you balance the two, and where do you put the importance in this and making impatient people like me happy?
Yeah, it is. It's a challenge. Because we do need to act, and at the same time, there are times and situations where what is actually needed is a deeper understanding of what is happening, a shared understanding. And sometimes the action is not needed right at that moment, but to understand the situation better. But other times there is action needed. And yes, it does take patience. And it is, I think part of it is developing these skills within ourselves. Part of it is the group developing those skills. But moving forward, a piece of it is that action is a part of the learning process. And consultation is about making decisions, but it's also about learning together. And if we're just always talking about the thing and not doing anything about it, we're probably not learning as much as we could be. And so if we get there, we can make some decision. Let's make some decision and act on it and see what happens, because we can always make another decision tomorrow. We can always adjust it. We can always move it along. And so helping the group understand that action is a part of the learning process and it's necessary.
Vargaram offers also another additional input into the hierarchical issues, and he mentions the feedback loop, so that after the meeting there's a way by which you can go back, and I'm thinking both of it's a 360 loop feedback, so that everybody shares with each other. So there may be some interesting points there on the feedback after the consultation and how to handle that.
Yes, the feedback is really that is a part of that cycle. It's so important. So when a group makes a decision, then you look at what happens. We act on it, and then the group can come back and reflect what happened. What did we learn? What worked? What didn't work? What didn't happen? And what do we need to do next? And so, yeah, that reflection process is so important in this learning process. So we make a decision, we act on it, we come back, we reflect on what happened, how did it go, what do we need to do next, do we need to change anything, or are we good? Are we, was it a great decision and we just keep on going? That constant acting and reflecting is a part of that process.
And we have another input from Wade Chouette, more than a question is highlighting. So he underlines that just one pass, one round, one circle rarely sufficient. Is rather many passes, and you gradually get closer to that shared truth. So he's highlighting the repeat and really understand and go deep, and not stay on the superficial to I don't understand. So it must be wrong, goodbye, that's it, closed. Instead, trying to have the patients to go through different layers. So my question to that is, how do you keep the energy? If I agree, we need to be close to the truth one more time, or one again and again. How do you keep the energy up to create that unity versus, not again situation?
Yeah, and again, that's where that tapping into that spirit that's greater than ourselves is so important, because that energy comes from that spirit. It's not just my efforts or this group's efforts. We're tapping into something that's even greater, and that's leading us forward. It's, if you watch a child learn to walk, they fall all the time, and they just get up and keep going. And so is how do we become that child again? How do we become that constant learning? Oh, well, that didn't work, let's try something else. It is building those internal reserves within us, and those internal qualities within us to keep going, to tap into that spirit, that energy that allows us to come back again even when we stumble, and figure out, how do we do it next? What's the next step?
Absolutely. And let's see, there's one more. And just because he's from Oregon, so he's a neighbor, it's probably a neighbor, so we should not forget, because I think it slipped between the cracks. I didn't mention Roger's question about goals, and really coming together and finding goals that we can all share together. how do you establish it? I mean, are there some experiences, MIT you mentioned, or in different kind of situations where this was particularly successful in establishing these shared goals?
Mm-hmm. I think a piece of that is identifying that shared vision. What is it that we all want? What is it that we all are working for? And sometimes that's sometimes clear in the beginning, but sometimes that has to kind of bubble up from the process, from the work, and helping people see that what they are individually wanting, working toward, connects to what the group is wanting and working toward too. That it's again also this development process. Sometimes groups start off and it's everybody's going in a different direction, and it takes time. It takes time and conscious effort to work on that. I was on a team that was like that, and it was every single person was off in a totally different direction. And what I learned is that I needed to go into each meeting with, how do I serve? How do I serve this group in this moment at this time? What does this group need right now? Because if we expect a toddler to run a race, it's not going to work. But if we expect a toddler to take the next step, that will work. And so you need to kind of figure out where your group is at, what it's grappling with, what is needed next, and how can I best serve in this moment today.
Fantastic. And it's amazing what I keep discovering about consultation. I thought I knew a thing or two about consultation, but you really opened up a whole new set of layers and really useful inputs to go in there. There's no more questions at the moment. I wonder if you have a final closing remark, as we are just about to hit the hour, and to be together, and just such a rich also the questions really made it very interesting. So Sarah, do you have a last phrase or mention that you would like to share?
Well, I just want to thank all of you so much. This has been such a rich experience, and I think this is what that consultative spirit is all about. We have different questions, we have different perspectives, we have different ways of looking at things, and by hearing each one, we get a better understanding of what consultation is all about. And so I'm so grateful, because I was a little bit nervous putting this together. I don't have all of the information, and I don't have to. That's the beauty of it, is that all together we have the information that we need. So thank you. This has been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Fun. And talking about having all the information that you need, I just posted once again your toolkit that people can download, and then to your book that people can enjoy. And also the fact that tomorrow we've got the second in the series of the BBF Will Met events with Arthur taking us into a governance, global governance, I think, or a new kind of set of ideas and hope in times of crisis. Oh my word, do we need hope in times of crisis? So Sarah, thank you very much. Vahid, fantastic to have your support. Boyd, to make everything happen. Nikki, behind us, just clicking away. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you all very, very much. And look forward to seeing you tomorrow with Arthur. Thank you very much, Sarah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And yes, it will be put online.